Oop, I got to move over here. All right, here we go. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, hey everyone, and welcome to B2B Hour here on Auto Conversion. This is our live monthly webcast series that we facilitate here for B2B marketing and sales professionals. So that includes business leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, whether you're in a full-time day job or a couple of part-time jobs, or running your own show, or running a venture capitalist startup. This place is we are meant for you. Here today is Wednesday, May 11th. I am Ryan Girardi, your host, and I thank you for joining us. Our general theme for the show is how to stay connected and engaged with customers, strategic partners, and employees. So we offer a unique product here on Auto Conversion for you to do these things. And we invite you here to learn, to network, and to grow both your personal and your professional brand, grow your network, grow your online reputation. Now, today our focus is on accountability and personal transformation. We're also going to look at the value of a media entity for your small business. So effectively, we'll be looking at two directly related topics or themes and how they go hand in hand for your business. We'll also be discussing the value or the importance of having a media entity, or at least a media strategy for your business. This is on the heels of Elon Musk purchasing Twitter for $44 billion, which we'll look at briefly. And then for our mindset segment, we have a special exercise for keeping yourself better grounded. Our guests today are Robb Holman, international best-selling author and public speaking coach. Also have first-time guest appearance from Tou Ger Lee, who is a transformation coach, who will be leading our mindset segment as well. So sit back and hang tight, and we will get started in just a moment. All right, let's get things rolling here. You see on my screen here, you can't see my hand. There it is. If you go to autoconversion.net, you'll get all the information about today's show. This is the blog post about it. And if you're not subscribed, take a moment to get subscribed. You can do that by checking out any one of our mastermind programs or just going directly to the programming section. Anything that you subscribe to on our website will put you in as a free AC Insider, which basically means you'll get access to all the information that we put out, and it'll give you an opportunity to learn, network, and grow your online reputation. Now, I need to do something here on my end that I didn't get set for, so give me 1 second here. Gonna go there. All right. So basically, accountability is a vital part of success, no matter what business that you are in or what you're trying to accomplish. And whether it's planning or strategizing or goal setting, whatever it is, we must find ways to hold ourselves accountable for both our actions and our inactions. But holding yourself accountable can be a slippery slope. It can be very challenging, which is why it may be necessary to have others help keep you accountable. And this is where things like group coaching, roundtables, or one-on-one coaching, not just group coaching, mastermind groups, all of these things can be valuable for that piece alone, for levels of accountability. And as you can see on our website, I'll show you here, if you follow this link, programs like these, that'll bring you here to our masterminds section, which I thought I had up, but I do not. Let's bring that up there. And that's why I say we offer ways for you to do these things. For some reason, this is not sharing. Give me a second here. Gotta love these little nuances that you get all the time. Ding dong. All right, here we go. Here's what I was trying to share, folks. Glad I caught that though. All right, we'll make it larger here. There we go. So we offer groups like Audio Video Pros, which is, think of like office hours. We call them studio hours. We use StreamYard for live streaming, and there's a little bit of a technology learning curve to get used to StreamYard. And then, as you know, if we do this show, we do a couple different shows, and we use StreamYard for all that. So we do a bi-weekly roundtable in StreamYard to help you get familiarized with that, but also to go around the room and share and discuss your media strategy, your public relations strategy, and you'll get peer input and feedback. We also offer B2B marketing and sales pros. This is a newer program that we're launching to focus on what you heard me say, B2B marketing and sales and so on. So there's a whole list there. And like I said, these are things that we offer here on Auto Conversion to help you with things like accountability. You know, StreamYard's being funny today because I want to switch back to where I was, and it's just not letting me. That's very not cool. So I have to reset this. I'm just going to go to this mode. I'm going to override and be, you know, I always say be smarter than what you're working with if you can. Let's see how this works. All right. I don't know if that's working or not. Actually, I'm convinced that it's not because that's a different screen. It is totally a different screen. All right. Time out. See, this is the beauty of live streaming is you get these little nuances here. All right. We're going to reset this. Go back here. You know, every system has its own limitations. And I guess we're just forced to deal with those in times like these. Let me go back to this mode here and pop that back in. There we go. We're right back here. Okay. So we're going to focus on accountability. I have Robb Holman coming on in just a moment. What I wanted to get into is that in a 2020 study, it found that focusing on your goals, specifically by writing them down and holding yourself accountable, contributes to a significant increase in accomplishing those goals. Now, I hear the opposite a lot of times too, that you don't need to write down your goals. You know, have goals. How you write them down, you know, whatever works for you. These are exercises for you. But people who track their progress by checking with, say, friends or family, using their social media following to reap the benefits, not only for accountability, but also for instant feedback and support from others. So we already know that social media reactions, likes, and shares, they have a direct and measurable impact on our serotonin levels, which impact our emotions and our mental health. So, you know, nowadays, the process of marketing does have, you know, mental, emotional, and physiological impacts on us. And, you know, unless you live with your head in the ground, you've probably heard that Tesla CEO Elon Musk has made a bid to purchase Twitter for a total price of $43 billion, which the stakeholders and the board of directors could not reject. It was too good to reject. They really, you know, had to take that. And reality is almost every media entity is owned by one of only a handful of people. So think about that. There's a handful of people, we're talking a few dozen, that pretty much own all the major media in the world. And I use that to say, we know the power of media. We know that it can influence, it can mislead, it can manipulate, but most importantly, it can influence and it can impact and change minds and change lives. And so what I put forth to you is, how does that apply to your small business? What do you do to have a media strategy or a media entity? For instance, this show that I do is a media entity. It's a media product that I use for auto conversion. What do you do? So I'm going to bring Robb Holman on. We're going to talk about accountability and a little bit on media entity, and we'll get to hear, because Robb, so you know, he runs a podcast. He does a monthly show where he interviews leaders. He's very consistent on social media. So let's bring Robb on and have a little powwow about that. 1, 2, let's see.
There he is.
There we go.
Hey, you're looking good, my brother, Ryan Girardi. The hair's put back, slick, sleek.
Oh yeah.
You're having a good hair day. I'm
having a good hair day. I just have to pull it back and it works. How's your hair these days?
Well, it depends on the day. You know, that's why I mentioned you're having a good hair day. I just got a fresh cut last week, so I'm having better hair days than I've had in recent weeks for sure. But every time I'm around you, I keep I keep on thinking, like, what would I look like if I grew my hair out, I
Should.
put it back and had a man bun? I don't think I could get away with it nearly as well as you do.
Yeah, you should give it a shot. This is not a man bun, just technically.
It's not. Okay.
All right. So we only have a few minutes. Let's get focused here. You heard me lay it out. Accountability, I think we all agree, is vital to success. Do you agree, or would you challenge that?
No, absolutely. I think how we go about accountability in our culture, and I'm just saying in US culture, world culture, has a stigma attached to it, negative connotation. When people hear the word accountability, oh no, they're out to get me. Think about that, Ryan. Why? Because the average person and leader, when they hold someone accountable, they're much quicker to point out the bad or missing the mark or the gap that exists, as opposed to being obsessed with the good that we're doing. I'm here to say personal transformation has everything to do with what would it look like if we hold each other accountable more so with who we really are, so there's no need to compare ourselves with other people, as well as the good that we're actually doing in our job, in the home, and in the world. When we begin to go about accountability with that, quick to point out the good, when we actually get to some of the missing gaps and missing the marks and stuff like that, we're going to actually be tackling that out of a completely different place. We know more of who we are and who we're not. Thus, we're much more willing to work on some of our weak areas. So to see the a gap begin to shrink, begin to close, and be consistent with truly who we are and our sphere of influence.
That is something I've learned from you, is focusing on your strengths. I've applied that in my own coaching. I do baseball coaching, and I even brought it up to the kids. I said, look, some of you are smaller and quick and can run. Some of you are larger and are going to have a hard time stealing and running and covering balls. So we're going to work with our strengths and not try to, pull off miracles with our weaknesses. What do you do without having like a group of people? Say, how do you hold yourself personally accountable? What are some tips you have for us, not involving others, to hold ourselves accountable? Do you have any input on that?
Absolutely. I think having a 12-month mantra is really important. You could begin the new year. I think it's necessary. It's getting off on the right foot, et cetera. You can do it at any time throughout the year. I think a new year, new start, fresh opportunity before you, et cetera. Here's the thing. When you have a mantra, that's kind of a drumbeat that's running through your life holistically throughout the course of a 12-month or 18-month, or it could be 20-year period of time. But we're just talking about 12 months. Create a 12-month mantra of something that you're after. For instance, work smarter, not harder. Simplify my life. Get after it. Whatever that mantra is, then everything's through that lens. We have an increased awareness. We're making decisions out of that place every single day, every week. So perhaps our decisions might look a little different if we have a mantra constantly reminding us. And in a sense, it's kind of a drumbeat that runs through our life. So that's a great place to start. So some people call it like a theme, a 12-month theme. Call it whatever you want, mantra, theme. But nonetheless, it's an overarching umbrella of something that you're going after and something that you are becoming. Now, underneath of that umbrella, I love to get really practical. And this really helps me with personal accountability, is what are the 5 outcomes? Think holistically in your life, 5 outcomes by year end that you believe will come to pass. Think spiritual, family, career, physical, mental, emotional. Take it wherever you want it to go and come up with a very positive, declarative comment or statement that backs that up. For instance, okay, this is the positive kind of declaration. I will be more present with my family. And in parentheses, meaning quality and quantity of time. Okay, now that will steer you throughout the entire year. Trust me. Okay, so if all of a sudden now we have a positive outcome stated very specifically, now our intent is clear. When our intent's clear, you're writing this down, mind you. Okay, so now you have your mantra, you have arguably 5 positive outcome statements. And then I love to even get more granular than that. Break it in bite-sized pieces. Under each of those positive outcome statements, for the month of May, what's one action step? One small thing that I can do to see that particular outcome come to pass by year's end, and do it for all 5. And then you do it for each month. Each month builds on its last. And before long, you see this glowing path of life, passion, and enthusiasm where you're well on your way to accomplishing what you set after in the first place.
Those are awesome tips. I don't have my notepad for some reason. Oh, because I have to get a new one. So normally I would write those down. So I did try to put a couple in the comments for viewers.
Great.
And by the way, after we do our live streams, we unlist the videos. So you have to have the link to access the archives of the original live streams. And you do that, folks, by either subscribing to our YouTube channel or subscribing to our blog, like I mentioned, and that'll get you access to these links to view them later. Now, I was thinking as you had like you have a mantra for the year, like a theme, right? Like this is your overarching, umbrella that you're aiming for, and that way, if it doesn't fit into your mantra, then it could be a distraction. Have 5 outcomes. Those are very specific. Like I almost think of like milestones, right, or goals along the way of the overarching journey. But how about the process? Like you talked about the outcomes. Okay, how about the process? So, for instance, maybe it's what time you're getting up, what time you're going to bed. Doing things like exercise or taking breaks and taking walks. We're going to have Tou Ger on in a moment, talk about ways to keep yourself grounded. Can you speak briefly to how you hold yourself accountable through the process? And what do you do when you find yourself maybe, as I'd call, slacking in an area and that you're slacking in that area? What are some ways to hold yourself accountable and remotivate yourself?
Help! Hey, let's jump right into that one, Ryan, then we'll reverse engineer this thing. I have learned the power and the beauty in asking for help. All right. I've got to be clear with that. And I turn to my wife. I turn to other coaches, other mentors, and other colleagues to help in that process. Now, to go back a little bit, before I ask for help, and it doesn't take a whole long time to ask for help nowadays. Trust me. I learned the hard way years ago. I will not go back and relearn that again. However, on my own, I think it is fed really nicely into the action steps I'd mentioned before. When you have a bite-sized piece action step each month under each of your positive outcome statements, you be as specific and simple as you can possibly be in creating those action steps. Make them doable. There's a reason why we need bite-sized pieces, smaller action steps, because we're overwhelmed with the big goals. They sound great, but it's like pie in the sky stuff. We're anchored by tangible and specific and simplistic action steps. Now, when I make them simple, clear, and specific, I begin to have a bit of intentionality behind my day. My day becomes more purposeful. I be more intentional by what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and who I'm spending my time with. Now, in the midst of that journey, though, help! And this is where Tou Ger's really going to be able to help us, because I know he is a great brother, amazing insight and practical tools to help us in the area of goal setting and actually helping us not only help ourselves, but also leveraging community and tribe in order to accomplish our goals. Absolutely invaluable. Ryan?
Good stuff, Rob. So I'm going to break that down. Have an overarching mantra, a theme, set some outcomes, some still larger goals, but some very specific defined outcomes. I would even throw in there, define why those outcomes are important, so you know why you're focused on what you're doing. And then, as you heard Rob just say, break it into smaller pieces. That reminds me of a song by the White Stripes on their first album, and they're talking about a squirrel and how it gets through the winter, and it puts away all the little acorns, between winters, and stashes them away so it can survive through the winter. I can't think of the name of the song on there, but
That's right. Trust me, if you think of it, I might make you sing.
Yeah, or I might just play the song. So, Rob, great stuff, and really appreciate your input. Offer really a lot of concrete input. So thank you very much.
You bet.
I was trying to bring your LinkedIn profile up, and LinkedIn's asking me to sign in, and it's not doing it automatically. So
no worries.
You just have to look in the show notes, folks. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with our mindset segment and Tou Ger Lee, and we'll be back right after this message.
The origin really of this program is recognizing that over 90% of small business owners don't have a business plan in place, don't have a strategic plan. And, it's probably not coincidence that, 96% of small businesses fail in 10 years, that the numbers are pretty close. So I boiled down the most important parts of the process and also added what I believe to be a critical part of the process first, really introspecting inside yourself and deciding what's most important to the entrepreneur, like your personal mission, your cause, your reason, your why, whatever you want to call it, so that we can then go ahead and go through the company's cause and reason, and then really establish the entrepreneur's vision and, go through the most important steps like this.
So that was Dr. Lance Knob, one of our head coaches here at Auto Conversion. And what he was doing was explaining the philosophy behind his Jolt business planning process. You can learn more about that process. Go to autoconversion.net/grow and look for Jolt Business Vision. You can sign up for free, get all the information. You'll also get the template that Lance uses for business planning, and you'll receive a special offer to participate in that mastermind group. While there, if you're an author or an aspiring speaker or just are a public speaker, also check out Robb Holman's Get Paid to Speak Bootcamp and Advanced Masterclass. Both are available with information while you're there as well. All right, so we are going to switch over to our mindset segment, and I'm going to bring Tou Ger Lee on in just a second here. All right, there is Tou Ger Lee, transformation coach and speaker. Tou Ger, welcome to B2B Hour here on Auto Conversion.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm really excited to be here with both you and Rob.
And Tou Ger is part of this mix because he's part of Robb Holman's Get Paid to Speak speaking class. I think you started probably about 2 or 3 months ago. And one of the features and processes within that is to be up here on B2B Hour to grab a segment and do a small presentation. So Tou Ger, I think what you have for us, if I can make you solo, is you're going to show us your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, which while he's doing that, I'll show you on his website where you can see more information about that and sign up for free on Tou Ger's site. So if you're ready, Tou Ger, I'll give you the stage.
Good to go. Thank you. Yeah, so for everyone watching, this is a grounding exercise called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a beautiful technique because it uses all 5 of our senses. And so without getting too much into it, I'm just going to directly guide you in. And so if you're in a position where you're able to close your eyes and you feel comfortable doing so, feel free to do that. And if you're not comfortable doing so, I invite you to just kind of gaze in front of you. Settle your gaze there. For me, I'm going to close my eyes because I'm huge with this. And so first thing I'm going to invite you to do is I invite you to find 5 things. Or actually, you know what, really quick, let's open our eyes for this one. My apologies. So the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is find 5 things that you can see. The 5 things that you can see around you. So for example, right now, I see myself on the screen. I see my microphone. I see my water bottle. 5 things that you can see around you. And then now I'm going to invite you to close your eyes here. Now, after you found those 5 things that you can see around you, I want you to look for, or I want you to listen for 4 things that you can hear going on in your surrounding. And right now, that might be the sound of my voice. It might be a clock ticking. It might be the buzzing of your fridge. 4 things that you can hear. And once you're done with that, I want you to pay attention to 3 things that you can physically feel. So for me right now, I feel my feet on the ground. I feel the wind coming in from my open window. What are 3 things that you can physically feel? Now, what are 2 things that you can smell? And I get that not all of us are in a position where we can smell something right now. So if you can't smell anything right now, what are 2 things that you love smelling? You know, immediately off the top of my head, I love the smell of popcorn when I walk into a movie theater, or the smell of, you know, grandma's fresh baked cookies. So what are 2 things that you can either smell or love smelling? Think about those. And the last one here is I want you to think of 1 thing that you can taste, or like the smelling one. I get that not every one of us has something in our mouths right now. So 1 thing that you love tasting. For me, I'm still thinking about grandma's fresh baked cookies. You know, love the taste of those. Now, peppermint is also another one. So what is 1 thing that you can taste or you love tasting? All right, and when you're ready with that, go ahead and open your eyes. And I invite you to come back to this moment here with us. And the beauty with this, like I mentioned earlier, is you really get to use all 5 of your senses, which are so essential. Like, we're always using these every single, every waking moment of the day. We're using these. It's just sometimes we're not aware that we're using them. And so by doing that, we ground ourselves in 5 different ways. I see that Ryan is pulling up the blog that I have here, walking you through the technique as well. So feel free to go and check that out. And another thing I want to share here with the 5 grounding or 5 senses to ground yourself is, we've all been there before when let's just say you're on a Zoom call all day, and then you get off and you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube or you're on social media scrolling and watching something. That's not really you taking a break. And most of us have experienced that before. Now, the reason why it's not considered taking a break is it's because you're using the same senses you just were. And so you'll notice in these moments, the best advices are always, go take a walk, go eat something, go and, close your eyes and listen to music. And essentially what people are saying is go use some of your other senses. Sometimes we overextend ourselves in one sense or another, and we need to elevate some of the ones that we haven't been using. So if you find yourself in a moment where you've been listening quite a bit, give your ears a break and go read something or go eat something or go smell something or physically do something, right? And you can mix and match that with every single sense that you have. And that way you have an equilibrium and a harmony between them, rather than stimulating yourself in one area and being completely empty in the other ones. So those are the tips that I want to share with you on this call here. Ryan?
Very good stuff. So my curiosity, and I was doing that partially with you while you were doing that, but I also was in production mode for the show. But I've done the exercise twice off your website. I love that you have that on your blog, and I can actually go to it anytime, and you can walk me through that. I've done that a couple of times now. Did you make up this exercise, or is this something that was taught to you or that you discovered somewhere else?
This was not an exercise made up by myself. This is actually an exercise that originally was created to support folks who are in the middle of an anxiety attack or a panic attack.
Okay.
To really ground them, because those moments can be kind of intense. And then people realize, hey, you don't only need to do this when you're in the middle of an anxiety attack. You can do this to prevent one, because preventative care is the best kind of care. So that's really why I use it before it gets to that burning point.
How often do you find yourself doing that particular exercise or something comparable?
Yeah, so this particular exercise, I find myself doing maybe, once every 2 weeks or something. It's not like I have a ritual or a routine. Mm-hmm. I usually do it when So for me, burnout, I can tell I'm right on the edge of burnout when I start to feel pressure in my head. And the moment I start sensing that, I get ahead of the curve and I do this exercise just to bring myself back. And that allows me to reset in order to reassess how I want to continue the rest of my day or the rest of my week going forward.
Yeah, I've become uber sensitive to when I need to take a break, and it could be as short as 5 minutes. And for me, it's when there's too much going on and I just I can't focus. It's like everything's spinning around, and I'm like, okay, I need a 5 or a 10 minute or sometimes a 20-minute break. And yeah, it's like anything you can do, but that's a very quick, specific exercise. So very good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. If you go to tougerlee.com, you can subscribe for free to his website, learn more about what he offers. And Tou Ger, thank you very much for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ryan.
So let's transition over. I'm going to bring Robb back on, and we are going to go into what I call panel discussion mode. Let me remove this from here, and it's going to be the three of us online. Give me a second here. And here we go. We're all three on stage. Fancy that. So, Robb, let's have you react first to Tou Ger's exercise and just speaking to, that idea of getting, reaching burnout, anxiety, overwhelmedness.
Well, I love it because Tou Ger, thank you for that. And I mean it. That is a tremendous gift you not only have given me, this is the second time I've done it, but that you're offering to the world. It really is, because I used to have panic attacks back in college and probably up to about 3 years after college. And I know how, Ryan, I don't know if you ever knew that. And they shook me to the core. I thought I was going to die. I would find myself in certain situations and run out of the room because I was too claustrophobic. If I would have had an exercise like this, in emergency kind of a way, it certainly would have helped tremendously. But not only it helps people in the immediacy or emergency of their situation, I love the word that you mentioned. It helps us be proactive, to not allow us to go down that road. So when we start to figure out some of the triggers, some of the vulnerabilities that we have, stress related things, anxiety, etc., we can do certain things that are going to help our emotional and mental health, our heart, our soul, it's going to minimize, if not eliminate, in some cases, some of those panic attacks or high stress things that we have or go through, and even some physical manifestations when people struggle with a lot of stress as well. So I just want to say thank you. The second point I want to make very briefly is I love how you teach, Tou Ger, because it's highly experiential. I'm a firm believer that things are more caught than taught. You could have went on to the mindset segment and just taught people like information, and that would have been wonderful. Nothing's the matter with that at all. But you took it a whole other depth, and you had people actually experience what you were discussing, what you were talking about, and you started to ignite certain things in me and Ryan and others listening, others watching, that we can now, it's become that much more tangible. We can take it with us because we've experienced something quite remarkable. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too, man. If anything I've learned, I personally hit a wall of burnout like almost a year and a half ago, and it takes months to get through that and kind of, readjust and rebuild through that. And so it's forced me or caused me to be so much more aware and mindful of what, my limitations and when I'm hitting that maximum point, which is all the time, in this day and age with all the technology and demands, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. I think we all are. In fact, I even almost find it annoying when people tell you how they can't do this and can't do that because they're so overwhelmed and so busy. And it's almost as if they don't realize that everyone else is in the same boat that they are. It's like, we're all just, sometimes just hanging on for the ride here sometimes. Well, guys, let's get into accountability for a few minutes. And Tou Ger, let's have you maybe react to what Robb shared in the first segment about accountability and some of his strategies. How would you define or or explain accountability and its significance, in what you do.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really love what Rob had to say with the positive twist to it. I agree that, excuse me, I agree that in our society right now, we're using an accountability as almost like a whip. Like if you don't, then there's a whip. And that can be kind of the equivalence of running away from something. I'm just doing this to run away from something in order to run away from that pain. And in some senses they work, but if you're really going for your dreams and your goals, then that's not always going to be helpful, because you're going to essentially train yourself to get to the goal and still feel like there's something behind you waiting to whip you if you slow down. And so I love the positive twist to it. And I do this thing with my clients all the time, where instead of saying, hey, what haven't you done? Or, I haven't heard XYZ from you, what's going on? I just ask them, like, hey, how's this thing been going? Like you mentioned that you wanted to do this with your family. How did that go? Or you mentioned that you wanted to be this way as a leader. How's that going for you? And how's that, what's coming out as a result of that? And what it does is it paints the picture of what they want. And even if they haven't been doing it, they get to really envision what they want, and they get to start moving towards that. They get to say, okay, I'm not owning, my actions aren't aligned with what my dreams are. And so I'm going to move there out of desire rather than out of fear. And so for me, that's extremely powerful. I love what Rob had to say about it.
I like that too. And I will be fully transparent. I have a tendency to focus on being the whip. I have a tendency to do that. So, I think just hearing you respond in that way, Tou Ger, is a loud reminder for me. Like you said, focus on what's going to motivate the person, as opposed to maybe what's going to push them through, I guess you could say, from fear or pressure.
Hey, Ryan, if I could jump in real quick too. I think when we tend to go, because the temptation for many, you're not alone, to use more of that whip analogy. I think when we go down that road, many times it's just subconsciously, we just start to go down that road because that's what we were always taught. That's what we experienced, maybe perhaps growing up in our community, and how the world has defined accountability truly for us, as opposed to us redefining it based on the people and the things that matter most. Now, here's the deal. So if we rely on the whip, if we rely on all these things, and instead of a whip, I'll use this. Like I remember big basketball player growing up, and I remember if I missed a certain amount of free throws, I'd wear a rubber band around my wrist. And what did I do if I missed? And I had other friends that did the same. We'd pull back the rubber band and give ourselves a big whack to say that's bad. And I just found like that did more hurt, not only to my wrist, but to my mental health and emotional stability. And I think a lot of those tactics and strategies, they're more outside things trying to get inside to inspire us. What would it actually look like if we start on the inside of one's mind, their heart, their soul, their passions, what makes them come alive, and in a sense, enter into that space and that place and fan it into flame? That's really what we're talking about. And as you're very well aware, Ryan, that's what Inside Out Leadership, what I've devoted my life to, is helping people in that way as well. So
I'm not trying to come up with a word for that, you guys. Like inspiration is what I'm hearing, right? What's going to inspire you and motivate you? But what would be a word to be the opposite of that? Because like whipping isn't really the right explanation. I'm trying to come up with a word for focus on this, not on that, right? Because we're all coaches. And the challenge of being a coach is, I'll use your term, Rob, active listening, right? Not just not talking, but actually hearing, listening, and engaging constructively. That, to me, that tests your patience. It's so much easier to see where someone might be, failing, falling short, or getting themselves distracted or not doing the work. It's easier to see that for us on the outside than it is for them. And then I think it's natural for us to be, you're not doing this, you need to do that, versus asking questions, listening, and finding that inspiration. So I can't think of a word for the opposite, but I like that inspiration and motivation, what you want to focus on.
I like that. I was going to say, Tou Ger, do you want to take a crack at that? Speaking of the whip analogy, but keep going. Oh, that was.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know if I have an opposite word, but what I always say to my clients, and I say to people that I work with as a whole, is, we're not here having you run away from something. We're here having you run towards something.
That's good.
And a lot of the times, accountability can look like a running away from, like, again, with the whip thing, versus, hey, are you running towards your dreams? And if you aren't, what needs to shift? Right? And you could hear there's still accountability there, but it's about something. It's about moving towards something that you want from where you currently are, rather than trying to get away from where you currently are. Yeah. So hopefully that makes a little more some kind of sense here with the, instead of running away from, running towards.
I like that. And while you said that, I just added the word pressure. You can pressure people, and there's a time and a place for pressure. I mean, we just had the Kentucky Derby, and that whip analogy is very real. You're whipping that horse, not in a punishing way, but in a communicative way on the pace of that horse and what it's doing. And I think what I'm hearing from you guys is, hey, as people, we might get a better result by focusing on what that person is motivated, inspired to accomplish, and that's what separates us in many ways. Good stuff. Well, this is a good lesson. Let's transition, you guys, into the idea of a media and a strategy or media entity. Elon Musk, as I mentioned, he's expected to serve as the temporary CEO of Twitter just for a few months as he completes their $44 billion takeover of the social media company. The current CEO has only been at the helm for a few months, and it was unclear on whether Musk would seek to install a new CEO once his takeover was complete. But it looks like Musk is going to be doing that. But, I think this story is so important because, Jeff Bezos, this founder and former CEO of Amazon, he purchased the Washington Post, I think 2013, 2014, so a little less than 10 years ago. As you heard me say, a lot of the media entities are, owned by just a handful of people across the world. But would you guys agree? I mean, I know, Rob, you agree. Tou Ger, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the idea of media. And I use that word broadly. When I think of a media strategy, to me, marketing is overarching an umbrella, like client services, human resources and advertising are all forms of marketing, whereas media is very specific to, I would say, narratives and the transmission of information to support that narrative, or in some cases to counter an opposing narrative. Rob, I know that's important for your business. Tou Ger, how about for you? When you think of media for your coaching business, where is it on the scale for you, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, well, I think for me, it's huge, especially in the world we live in today with the pandemic still kind of being a thing. Everyone's on social media. And even before then, everyone was on social media. A lot of the influences came from what you see, and what was going on. And I think being able to use it in such a way where it can really help me translate my expression, and the lessons and the values I was trying to get out in the world. It's just really been great for that. What I will say is that, media is kind of a double-edged sword where you can use it for something really powerful, or you can use it for something pretty evil. Right? And for me, it's all about, like, how can I use this in order to fulfill on the purpose I have, which is to create a world where people love living life. And if it's used in that way, then it can do something really amazing. And that's always what I try to bring into it. So does that answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, and there is no answer, because in this case, I would call it a loaded question of, where does it stack up here? Only because I know for Rob, where media is. And Rob knows for me, like you mentioned social media, Tou Ger, and I made a very intentional, conscious choice for myself and my business to fade out social media from my life, from my business. And for me, it was because of the time, the effort, and the ROI. It just didn't it wasn't blowing me away. And so I thought, well, what if I didn't put the time and the effort into it? What would that do for me? And my first concern that I had was the relationships. What relationships was I at risk of losing indefinitely, if not forever, by doing that? And so what it made me do was make sure I had the phone numbers and email addresses of the people that were most important for me at that time, right? And knowing that I had an alternate way to communicate with those folks. Now, those are one-on-one relationships, but I think a lot of people think of social media as a megaphone to get the word out, to reach the masses and get new people. And so I made the choice that I'm not going to use that form of media. And I shouldn't say it's not absolute. Like, I'm on LinkedIn. I did choose to stay with LinkedIn. I do use YouTube, but I don't consider YouTube a social media thing, even though you can publish videos and YouTube will, put that in front of people. So in effect, yes, you can reach people that have never heard of you. But going back to Robb, Tou Ger mentioned social media. Is social media, as we know it, the ultimate, the best form of advertising for small businesses in your estimate?
Well, here's the thing I want to do. I want to bring a distinction between two things: influence and impact. Okay. So if social media and media in general and at large is about influence, because there is a megaphone there, you have a message and you can sway people, you can have influence in their lives, at least to some degree, arguably, whether that's positive, negative, or somewhere in between. Impact is different. You can certainly make an impact through media, no doubt, but the greatest impact, it's on the one-to-one relationships. You want to multiply your effect? You want to make disciples of your message and your teachings, experientially, knowledge-based, etc.? It's through one-to-one interaction, which takes one thing: time. It takes time. Time that media at large doesn't even scratch the surface of. Because I can blast and use all these different channels and blast this and blast that and have some level of influence. But when I spend time with someone in my life to receive what they got and I give them what I have, there's sacrifices ultimately that need to be made. But at the end of the day, when I'm no longer living, it perhaps is a legacy that I can leave behind. So I just want to bring that distinction. I think that has everything to do with small business, because Ryan and Tou Ger, how we build our business really does matter. Are we building it based on the masses, or are we building it based on the one? Are we building it for short-term or immediate gain, or to one day leave a legacy? Just some things to ponder. I got it.
I want to add to that, because what you pointed out is really strikes home, right? Because I get so much value in the one-on-one, but there's a middle ground too, and that is small groups. And that is where since I've gotten away from social media, of trying to to me, my approach with social media was, outreach, spray and pray, right? Who can see it? Who can find it? What do you get? What comes in return? And then what happens is that fills up the top of your funnel, right? Social media is like the top of your funnel in a lot of ways. That's the entry point into your funnel. And what's the goal is to bring people into a decision mode, right? Where they can make a decision, an informed decision on whether or not to do business with you and transact money. And that's a one-to-one. And I think now that you're pointing that out, what I have found over eliminating social media is I've seen so much more value in small groups, whether it's 3 people like we're doing here, or 5 or 10 people in these mastermind groups and roundtables. So much value, because it's not one-on-one, but it's like you said, you only have so much time. Time is finite. So if all of your advertising was one-on-one, you're going to reach, maybe, I don't know, a few hundred people in a year, and you can't really scale a business that way. But if you take the small group approach, well, 3 people is 3 times more than 1. 5 people is 5 times more than 1. So now you have scale that's actually pretty manageable. So I would put forth that small group, call it advertising, call it marketing, call it engagement. So much power in that.
I like that, Ryan. That's good. No, you're touching on the middle ground, which, hey, the temptation is to reach the masses. Okay, ultimately, the greatest impact is with the one, but there is a place in between, and that really does make things a bit more scalable. So thanks for highlighting that for sure.
Yeah, and looking at Twitter from Elon Musk's standpoint, there was a chart that I had seen, and it showed his volume of tweets over the past 10 years. And every few months, you would see spikes on the quantity, the volume of tweets that Elon himself was doing. And there was a correlation to his net worth, which was tied to mostly his stock value of Tesla, but also SpaceX as well, right? So if you think about it from Musk's standpoint, he's like, well, the more I use Twitter, the more money I make. So why wouldn't I spend $44 billion to make more money, right? And to me, that is it's an analogy, or maybe it's an unrelatable example of what media can do for us. You could put a tremendous amount of time into your media efforts and get not enough return, but you also need to put some amount of time into those efforts, because you still need a return. And that is unique for all of us. And I think that leads to, how do we know? How do we make that decision? So Tou Ger, maybe I go to you. Okay. What do you do? I know you have a blog. Do you have a set discipline for your blogging frequency?
Yeah. So for me, I'll be honest with you. I'm a very minimum input for maximum output kind of person. So what I do in terms of my, I guess we'll call it strategy, is, what is one lesson that I'm currently learning in my own life right now? What is one lesson that I'm currently learning or walking through or relearning, perhaps? Usually it's that. And what do I need to say about this? And when I create a blog around that, because blogging is for me the most, it's just kind of the best form of expression for who I am. I can take that and I can turn that into, a YouTube video. I can take that and I can turn that into other forms of media, whether it be on social media or on my website or on whatever other media I want to put out there. So that's the strategy that I use, and it really does a great job at just repurposing what I have going on. And I think it also does this thing where, so for example, when I put it on my blog, it's all words. But if I wanted to take it and I wanted to put it on, let's just say my Instagram, it becomes a picture. And through that process of it becoming words and turning into, being words and becoming pictures, there's a shift that happens inside of me that has me see it from a whole new perspective. And I think the beauty in this, and this could just be the coach in me speaking, but the beauty of it is I get to look at this one topic, but from, 50 different angles. And I get to really dissect, how does this, I guess I get to dissect, how does this speak to certain people depending on the form that it looks in? Because some people are visual, some people are readers, some people are auditory, learners. And so it really allows me to make, to Robb's point, to expand on the impact that I'm making depending on people's learning styles and, what people really enjoy gathering the information through.
And I guess to support what you're getting at, because Robb, you've heard me say this. What's great about a blog is it to me, it houses multiple mediums. So as you said, you have written form, you can embed graphics, videos, links, you can even embed audio podcasts into a blog. And then, like you said, then you can take those pieces of media. You could put the picture in Instagram. You can put the podcast, on Twitter. You can put the video, on Facebook and LinkedIn, but it's all sourced from the same place. And to me, and I'll actually drive this right back to social media. My strategy with social media was create the blog, then use social media to get it out there. And what I found was, if I could just get people subscribed to the blog, right, which was the goal, then they didn't need it in social media all the time. And so it became extra time when I just had the subscribers. So that led me to, hey, my database is the most important thing. What's the shortest, quickest path to getting you into my database? And I found social media was a way to keep people out of my database, because Facebook became your database, LinkedIn became your database, and now you had multiple databases to worry about. And that was a lot of work. So LinkedIn has Sales Navigator, which is like $80+ a month. And I used it for a few months. And the problem I found was, here I had a pipeline on LinkedIn and then a pipeline in my own database. So I had to manage 2 pipelines. And I was like, why am I spending extra money to split myself in 2? And I just scrapped it.
Sounds exhausting, Ryan. Yeah, good decision in scrapping it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Sales Navigator is a phenomenal tool. It is a very powerful tool. Folks, if you don't have a MailChimp or a CRM system of some sort, if you don't have a real powerful database, I'd say spend $80 a month on Sales Navigator and LinkedIn. It's a seriously powerful tool. But go ahead.
I was going to say, this is a shout out to you. I want to be just straight up with everyone. You opened my eyes up. Speaking of the blogging and the importance of influence and impact, really. Up until a few months ago, I don't know whether it was 6 months ago, 9 months, it's irrelevant in a sense. I was just doing my own thing. I would just be shooting out my content through Facebook and Insta and all these different things, and thinking, oh, this is awesome. I'm getting my stuff out there. And then you spoke into my life. You said, hey, my brother. And you have become, as you know, my media coach. I'm like, something's got to change here, Ryan. He's like, yeah. Like, do you have a consistent blog? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
He goes, there's the magic for you, buddy. Because if you now create a blog, it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be every week. For me, it's monthly based on my podcast right now. Then it becomes a centralized place. Everything you're talking about, Tou Ger's talking about, it's a centralized place that you're storing different things. Now, Facebook and Insta don't own all my stuff, because if something happens there, all of a sudden I lose it. Now I got a centralized place that I can lead people to for further resources or specific resources. And then I can track it. There's analysis and analytics behind it. Ryan, I want to just say thank you. I've thanked you privately. I'm going to thank you publicly as my media coach, opening my eyes and awakening me to something that is reaping major benefit. So thanks.
Awesome. And we haven't even looked at your analytics in a while, but I think we have an innate sense a lot of times on what kind of influence and impact that our effort is making. Because every minute you spend doing something, you're putting energy out, right? And you're not sitting there tracking it and, stop watching the time you spend, but you do need to have some way to go, what is this doing for me? And there is an intuitive sense. There is an intuitive sense to that. Yeah. I think having a blog, even if it's once a month, like, you're already the exception to the norm, because most people won't have a blog, let alone update it. The first thing I do when I go to someone's website is I look at their blog. It tells me everything about their media strategy. And if I see that they don't have a blog, then I know that they're putting all of their stuff, if they're putting anything, they're putting it out on someone else's platform and network, and they're not getting any of that website traffic. If I see a blog and hasn't been updated in a year and a half or 2 or 3 years, that tells me a lot, So it's like looking in someone's trash can in a way, right? You learn a lot about a person.
Hey, Ryan, before this escapes me, I got to just share this. Getting back to Elon Musk. When I knew he bought, Twitter, what is it, 44 bill? He bought it for $44 billion, which just so happens, if you take a look at the new numbers of the wealthiest people in the world, is about a quarter of his net worth. I mean, the guy just has a lot of money. I mean, where Bezos took off a couple years ago and was leading the pack, now it's Elon Musk by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, he's in a whole nother league. And the fact of the matter is he sees so much value in Twitter alone. And look, what we're talking about here doesn't apply to big names and celebrities. When you're a big name celebrity in the world, Twitter is very powerful for your brand. That's where, to me, that's where social media has massive ROI is when you have, existing clout, throughout the world. But I don't see how it's very hard to use social media as the stepping ladder to get there. You have to have something else that makes you that. And social media becomes a tool to complement that in most cases. And that's why you hear me preach about a lot. Like, hey, I hear it a lot on Clubhouse. People spend a lot of time on social media and they're just not getting the return. And it's because it's not a stepping ladder to create, your brand per se. So, hey, look, I love this subject matter. Tou Ger, I'm glad you got in the ring here with us and we're able to chat about this. So any final words you'd like to throw in there before we round up?
No, I think you both mentioned it really well. I love that you both also added in, bring them back to your platform, because otherwise, if something happens with Instagram, Facebook, whatever other platform there are, you're kind of, that's it. And so, yes, I highly encourage, if, I myself, every time I put something on social media, it's always come back and subscribe to my blog. And I'm a firm believer of having your own platform. And I believe that's a huge part of the reason why Elon Musk, purchased Twitter, because he's also a firm believer of, having his own space. And so, yeah, just wanted to reiterate that. And thank you for the great conversation, too.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Tou Ger Lee, you can visit him at tougerlee.com, and Robb Holman also at robbholman.com. I'll go ahead and let you guys go, and then we'll wind down the show. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to see you, Tou Ger.
Yeah, good to see you both.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and wind down here. I'm going to go back into screen share mode, and these conversations, they move pretty quickly. And I appreciate both Robb and Tou Ger for coming up here. And I hope you folks that are tuned in, whether on the live or the recording or listening to our podcast, I hope you got some value out of that. Be sure to head on over to autoconversion.net. Unfortunately, I'm having some challenges with StreamYard today where I can't switch from screen to screen like I normally can, which is really kind of unfortunate. So what I'm going to try to do here is go to this window and let's see if this works. Hold on one second here and share. So you're going to get infinite. Okay. So, oops, I didn't mean to hit that. So like I said, go to autoconversion.net. Our blog is listed under here, AutoConversion. Look at our programming section. What this does is it shows you all the different ways to RSVP or to book yourself on our programming. We have this show. We also have the Mobility, Tech, and Connectivity show where we focus on how we are connected and the way we get around. And then you can also see down below, we have links to Eventbrite where you can register or book yourself on our biweekly roundtable, Audio Video Pros. We do a couple clubhouse rooms with Dr. Lance Knob of Denali Consulting that help you with your business vision and aligning that. So you can RSVP for that. And then also check out the mastermind section that I mentioned earlier. I think that is right here. You can sign up for any one of these programs for free, get all the information. You'll start receiving information about those programs and understand how you can take advantage of them. And all I'll say is you subscribe to our site for as little as $25 a month. You pretty much have access, either unlimited or in some cases limited access to to many of these different programs that we run. These are all intended to help you learn, to network, to grow, to help you hold yourself accountable on all of the things that you heard us talk about. I am Ryan Girardi. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back next month, same time, same place, with another edition of B2B Hour. Until then, have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week, and we will see you soon, everybody. Take care.